Hello, I'm Laura Kay and I'm Character Education Team Manager at Role Models. I wanted to share with you today 5 tips on how to respond to your child's big emotions, their meltdowns, temper tantrums, any sort of overwhelming emotion they're having. And the first tip is to give them space. Sometimes we have a tendency when they are very, very angry or very overwhelmed to ask them lots of questions, try and understand what's going on. What are you doing? How are you feeling? Why are you doing this? And quite often they won't really know what they're doing, why they're doing it at that time. Anger and frustration can be in response to a different emotion, perhaps fear or even being overtired. So sometimes the best thing we can do is to give them space, letting them know that we're there for them, but actually giving them an opportunity just to express whatever they need to and process it themselves. The next tip is to give them consistent boundaries and to make sure you're holding those consistent boundaries even when those emotions are quite big. We know that boundaries provide children with a lot of comfort. They might fight against them, but the consistency of those boundaries is really important. So if something is unacceptable, then it's always unacceptable, even when they're experiencing those big things. So if it's unacceptable to throw something, then it's always unacceptable to throw something. And maintaining those boundaries will help to support your child when they're feeling very overwhelmed. The next tip is to separate their emotions from their behaviour. As I mentioned before, anger, frustration is sometimes masking another emotion, and we can take it personally when children shout at us, when we don't feel they're appreciative or we feel that the aggression is directed towards us. And a really helpful thing is for us to remember that the behaviour is very different from the emotion from what they're experiencing. And we should always be focusing ourselves as best we can on why are they feeling this? Why are they behaving like this? What's the feeling? What's the trigger? What's happening for them? And that leads us on to the next tip, tip number 4, which is to create a diary of triggers. Children can sometimes have these big outbursts when they are very, very tired, when they're overwhelmed. And if you keep a diary of triggers, it will help you identify what's going on for them. So it might be, with the example of feeling overtired, you might identify that on certain days, at certain times, your child tends to have these outbursts, and you might change the structure of their week, maybe fewer play dates or fewer after school clubs. But creating a diary helps you sort of problem solve and understand what's going on for them. And the final tip is to include a calming activity in their weekly schedule. So whether it's walking or cycling, swimming, or something calmer such as reading or mindfulness colouring in, if you give your child that tool in their toolbox and they can identify that it's something that helps to relax them, then when they're experiencing those really big emotions, they know and they will eventually identify that that's something they can do to keep them calm. I hope you found these useful. Take care.